Dick, you have this incredible relationship with Joe Dante. Nearly 40 years standing. You've been in virtually all his features, some of his TV shows. Talk. What is it about you two that just clicks?
Oh, the good question. I don't know the answer to that. We just we hit each other. We met. We hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. No, nothing particular that I can put my finger on.
Now you were also a writer, and when you are in one of his pictures, does he allow you to futz around with the dialogue a little bit, or do you stick to what's written? Or
I usually change it slightly a bit. A line comes out and it doesn't sound right, so I rewrite it.
And he's good about that.
He doesn't care.
Because there's always a Dick Miller role. You assume that it will be written for you, and that the writer will have your voice in his head.
Well, they write for me, but they usually just write a character and they say, let's see what he does with it. And I change it a little.
Now, it's my understanding that originally Mr. Futterman dies, and then at the last second they have that little radio broadcast.
Yeah.
At what point during production did they decide to let you live?
They didn't until the picture was finished. That was an afterthought. They thought that many people were supposed to die in it. His mother was supposed to die in the original script. But when they changed that, and they figured we may just want to shoot this picture again in a few years, and let's keep one or two of the characters alive.
So they were already thinking sequel.
They were at the time, yeah.
This is Hollywood.
Yeah. Now, in Gremlins 2, you kick a little gremlin butt, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Now, Rick, you work on Gremlins 2, and you're credited as visual effects supervisor, which is not your usual act. Tell me how you got into this.
Well, I was approached to do Gremlins 2, and actually at first wasn't all that interested because my friend Chris Wettis did the original. He already did the designs, and that's the part that I have fun with, is designing the characters and stuff. But one of the first things I asked is if Dick Miller was going to be in it. And I said yeah, so I became a little more interested. Then I asked if Phoebe Cates was going to be in it. And then I became a little more interested too. But I said, I would be interested in doing the film if I could make them characters more. I mean, poor Chris practically died on Gremlins, the first one. It was so hard for him, and he did something that was very smart and practical for that film, which was, all the Gremlin characters were the same, out of the same mold. They looked exactly the same, with the exception of Stripe, which they put a hairy, some mohawk on. I said I wanted to make them individual characters. I said that would make it more fun to me. And they said, okay, yeah, whatever. The problem was that created a lot more work when you have, because in making puppets like that, you have a puppet that you get your arm shoved up and you're doing this, and another one you maybe have your arm down in its head and doing something. There's cable controlled ones. There's all these different puppets, and if all of them look the same, they just build one of each type of those puppets. For Gremlins 2, we had all these different characters, so we had to make 47 of each one, that did different things. So it was a lot more work, but it made it a lot more appealing to me.
Now, had you had a lot of experience with this kind of work before?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing puppets and animatronics and things since I was a little kid. I consider it was all part of my craft. I mean, I'm known mostly as a makeup artist, but I didn't like the limitations that you had with makeup. So that's where I got into the puppetry and other things like that. And makeup, when you're putting the makeup on an actor, the actor's face is the armature for your sculpture, and there's limitations of what you can do. If you're making a fake head, a puppet, character, you can do anything you want.
Ernest, talk to me a little bit about Demon Knight and working with Dick as Uncle Willie.
Well, I've been seeing Dick since in movies since I was a kid. I used to see a lot of the early Roger Corman films, and and there was always this guy in it. And, you know, in Night of the Earth, and Man with the X-Ray Eyes, and Bucket of Blood. You know, these are all.
Let's hear it for Bucket of Blood.
And War of the Satellites. You know, all these movies that Dick was in, and then when I came to LA, and you know, Dick also showed up in Joe's films. First saw you in The Howling, because you were in The Howling and then you were in Terminator and stuff. So when we were casting Demon Knight, his character Uncle Willie, and I was trying to think who would I love to work with as Uncle Willie, and Dick was the first person I thought of. And then I hope he would do it, you know, and he did, and we had fun.
If I can go off topic for a moment back to Dick, one thing I've always wanted to ask you was Martin Scorsese's New York, New York. That you play the club owner, and you have this scene with Robert De Niro where you guys are just bouncing off each other, and it really feels like it's been improvised, like Marty just said. Just start yiping at each other, and you know, to go toe to toe with De Niro, that takes AAA talent, and you matched him line for line. I mean, tell us a little bit about that experience.
There isn't much to tell. He changes his lines more than anybody I know. He takes your own lines. You throw a good line in, and he says, "Oh, that's good. I'll use it." And it makes it very difficult. So it became a challenge, really, how to film it.
Did you do a lot of takes on that scene?
No. Except, I hate to say it, but Bobby blew his lines.
Well, we'll keep your secret. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Hey, I have a question. Doesn't Dick Miller look like he could be my dad?
I just assumed you went to the same hairstyle.
I had the ponytail first. Yeah, he's copying me, I gotta say.
We live in the same neighborhood, and they check in and out.
Actually, come to think of it, Gremlins 2, even though you worked on several of Joe's movies, Gremlins 2 is the only one where you actually did work with Dick, because in Matinee and in Howling, Dick is many of the special effects scenes, right?
Yeah, no, he wasn't. I was involved with him on the Howling on that part, but yeah. But like I said, that was one of the highlights for me to do Gremlins 2 because, you know, Bucket of Blood. You know, it's like I did when I was doing Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes in England. I had to live in England for 14 months. You know, they put all the Americans in this place called Hampstead, or Hampstead Heath, which it's a nice place actually. And they had this little revival theater. And on Greystoke, I was working day and night, every day of the week, and I was, you know, like, had no time for fun or anything. But this little theater showed a Bucket of Blood one night, so I said, I'm not going to work tonight. I go see Bucket of Blood, and I made my English crew go. You know, I said, there's this movie called Bucket of Blood. It's great. It was made like in 45 minutes. But there's this guy in it, Dick Miller. He's terrific. You know? So it's just so cool. I just love Bucket of Blood.
The question was, will there ever be a feature-packed Blu-ray of Demon Knight?
Yeah, I hope there will be a Blu-ray of it. So far, I haven't heard anything about it, but it's right for a reappraisal that way, I think. I mean, it was a lot of fun making the film, and you know, shooting it in Van Nuys Airport in a decommissioned hangar, you know, and great crew and great cast.
I want to thank Ernest Dickerson. Well, we're going to